We cannot blame an environment or the people when ultimately it is our choice, our perspective that can dictate the way we live our lives. So when you go away from your environment and from those people, you can reorient and redirect yourself. And it's so important to do that because you're constantly hearing, listening to other people, whether that's through music, podcasts, lectures, at work, conversations. You're just constantly being fed of voices that you sometimes may lose your own voice. You sometimes may lose your own thoughts. It's okay right now if you are like battling with something that's been eating at you, with something you know you're doing wrong, with self-defeat, with insecurity. Like that is part of life. But you also have to know you are just such a beautiful person created by God to fulfill a purpose on this earth. And the more you stay in that denial and anxiety and the disbelief that you are valuable, that you are chosen, the more it prolongs you from fulfilling your purpose. And that's why you feel empty, because you're not fulfilling your purpose. And I think I want to talk to those people who are really working hard, overachievers, and who are almost in this rut in their life where they feel like everything is just like happening and they're not really getting to where they want to be. And that may most likely be because you're in an environment surrounded by people who aren't feeding into your goals, or who are almost, it's like you're on autopilot, meaning the environment, people, too comfortable, too like you know what your life is basically. Every day it's simple, the same routine. Maybe it's difficult, the same routine, and there's no change. And when there's no change, there's no sharp influx of, redirection. You're not gonna get to somewhere where you want to be, right? Like we don't always want to stay in the same place. We always want to grow. We always want to change. We always want to constantly get out of our comfort zone, right? Of course, there's times to stay in the present and stay rooted and grounded in what you've achieved and the struggle, but then there's also that shift. And so when I take these trips, this is my second trip, I really do this so that I can reorient what I want for myself, who I want to be there with me, what are my flaws and what's preventing me from getting there, and anything else in regards to where I feel like I'm falling short and can improve. So when I come here, I don't just say, oh, screw everyone back home. Oh, I'm just going to move and leave and go somewhere else. I'm like, something is happening to me that's preventing me from being the best version of me. And I need to figure out what that is. So when I go back, I reorient the way I see people. I reorient the way I see work. I reorient the way I see myself. And doing this allows me to live in that next level me, even when I go back to that same environment. We cannot blame an environment or the people when ultimately it is our choice, our perspective that can dictate the way we live our lives, right? So that's what I'm saying. So when you go away from your environment and from those people, you can reorient and redirect yourself. And it's so important to do that because you're constantly hearing, listening to other people, whether that's through music, podcasts, lectures, at work, conversations. You're just constantly being fed of voices that you sometimes may lose your own voice. You sometimes may lose your own thoughts. And so I want to speak to the person who is dabbling and going back and forth with their purpose and their insecurity and their anxiety and their calling, and they're getting like this tug of war, and it's really hard, I know, and it's really difficult. And that's why I love that I'm going into counseling and that I'm doing this master's program, because I've been able to just let all of this out with my counseling students group, and also just see other people also go through this war within themselves because of stuff from childhood. And this is not going to get too deep, but there has to be a point where you have to work towards letting those things go, meaning what people have done, what people have said in your past, it can't chain you anymore. And the more you allow it to chain you, the more you are a prisoner. If those people are not in your life anymore and no longer threatening you, but the memory of it is, you are imprisoning yourself. And for so long, I've been imprisoning myself. And people that have hurt me in the past, who are technically not really hurting me today, I keep thinking that they are. I keep believing that they are, and I stay prisoned by myself. I am imprisoning myself. And if this resonates with you, you have to address it with that person if they're available, if they're alive, if they're around, because you may think you can just forgive them, but I even know in my heart I need to just tell them out of love. Tell them, listen, you hurt me this time and I've been carrying this and I just want to let it go, so I need you to know this. And whatever their response is, that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to take out that burden. And if you can't speak to them in person, you got to give that to Jesus. You got to give it to God. Don't be afraid to do one thing that may be so uncomfortable in the moment, but can change the course of your life for good. That's all I have to say. I came to North Carolina to tell you that. And I spent $800 to tell you that. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not kidding. I did spend that much money. But I am enjoying it here. I'm learning a lot about myself, about people, about the world, not really about the world, about people, but more about myself. And I hope that if this inspired you, that you could take your own trip and let God speak to you and let you speak to you. Don't listen. When you go to your trip, minimize the music, minimize the podcast, the sermons. Like, I listen to so many sermons, which is great, but sometimes you just gotta let out your own thoughts, and that's okay. And that's why I film. That's why I write, because I want my original thoughts to come out, and not from other people, just from me, just the conversations with God. And sometimes we just need that. We need to hear ourselves. Have a blessed day, night, week, weekend. I will see you in my next video.